However, Bira Inyan, what is the significance of Lama Omer Azal, what the Chazal say, She'elam Hazeh Dafke Nivra Behei, that this world is created with Hey. Now, we know Hashem creates the world through speaking, right? But He doesn't only create this world through speaking, He creates everything through speaking. He creates Gan Eden, He creates Bria, He creates Yitzhak, everything is created through speech. We now know that speech has two parts. Part number one is the idea, that means the neshama, the ruchnius. Part number two is the energy of the words themselves. We now know that in the energy of the words themselves, there's a ruchnius of the words, which should be compared to the letter Yud, and the gashmius of the words, with the letter He. So the Medrash says, Yud nivra elam haba, all the ruchnius, the worlds are created with the letter Yud, and behei nivra elam hazeh. Now, to be sure, Gan Eden is created with Yud and Hey. It has a ruchnius and a gashmius. This world is created with a Yud and Hey. This world is not only gashmius, it's ruchnius also. So what do the Chazal mean when they attribute the letter Yud to the other world and the letter Hey dafka to this world? And the Rebbe gives a very gishmak answer. It's a very practical, simple answer. And that is, it's known to all people who have wise hearts. The various worlds and the chambers, which are the peripheral levels, the more concealed parts of the various worlds, that are beyond number. The pasuk says that there's no limited number of battalions and legions that the Eibishter has. That even though every chamber and every battalion and legion of malachim, this is based on a Gemara, by the way. There's thousands of malachim, and myriads of malachim, which is still a limited thing. But that's only in Mispegidud Echad, in each one legion. But the number of legions is literally bligavol. This is the Gemara. The Gemara says there's a contradiction in Psukim. One says that there's a certain amount of malachim to each gedud. Another one says Hayesh Mispad L'Gedud. And the Gemara answers Kan Mispegidud Echad, Kan Mispad L'Gedud. There's a limited number of malachim within each legion or battalion, but there's bligavol different categories of malachim. V'chei, moreover, Nefesh Ruach Neshama Chaya Yechida. There's an infinite number of levels of Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, Yechida. And I would propose to you that this Naran Chaya is talking about the more pneumistic levels of the world. The Chitzenius of the world would be the Malachim, and the pneumis will be the Naran Chaya of the world, but I'm not sure. And here in the Kuti, Shura B'Sefer Tanya said this goes to Pashal and Neshamas Yisrael. That Neshamas also have many Madregas laying cats, infinitely. In each world of the chambers, from the various different chambers of the worlds of Atzilos, Bri, Yetzira. And the Rebbe, of course, notices that he forgets to mention over here Asiya, but later on he mentions it. Hine kol ribuyim elu. All this diversity. Ribuy achar ribuy adin ketz mamish. It's so much diversity. Diversity on top of diversity without an end. Mamish. Says the Rebbe, hakel nishpa v'nimshach v'nishpa. Where does it all begin? What's the beginning of the draw and the flow of this diversity? It's miribuy tzirufis in the various different ways of combining Chav Beis, Atheist, Varavaya, the 22 letters of the Eibishter speech. Chamas Chalkas, which are divided, Gamken, Litzirufim, Ramad, and Ketz. The number of different ways you could mix and match 22 letters is literally bligavol. Sure.
What do you mean, like Aleph, Aleph?
Right. Aleph Beis Gimel, Aleph Gimel Beis, and then the variety is theoretically infinite. Now, I want to point out, this is already a third point. Point number one is the ruchnis of each us. Point number two is the gashmis of each us. Now we're talking about tzirufim, the mixing and matching of letters, which also comes from kadmas haseichel. Adein ket v'tach is also immeasurable, mamish. When it comes to Sefer Yetzirah says as follows: that if you have two letters, you can make two words. You have three letters, you can make 6 words. If you have 4 letters, you can make 24 words. If you have 5 letters, you can make 120 words. If you have 6 letters, you can make several hundred. And you have Shiva Avodim. If you have 7, it's Boines Chameshes Alofim Baboyim Batim. 5,040 different words, combinations. Mikan ve'elech, you can start including 8. Tzeva, Hashev, go and count. Masha Ein Epe Yachal Dava V'chulu, where the mouth cannot speak, and so forth. But if you have 22, it's exponential, especially since not every word is going to have all 22 letters. Some are going to have some letters, some are going to have other letters, and so forth. Okay, so there's a huge diversity. And the basic beginning of diversity, as like I said in Shadi Yichad Amuna, is the 7 meters. But 7 meters is only 7. The real reason there's such a big variety is the different letters. And there's letters in Bria, and letters in Yetzirah, and letters in Asiya, and there's diversity within those letters which provide all of these possibilities. Though there are in the steps and levels of Malachim and Neshamas, Kama Vakam, Mini Malas Madregas, all different types of levels and steps. chalukas that separate one category from the next, laying kates in an infinite way, gaveya, al gaveya, higher and even higher. In other words, now the Alter Rebbe is saying something different. Not only are there an infinite possible way of mixing and matching in different letters, there seems to be not just different types, but different levels, higher and lower. You have 22 letters, and say, okay, now mix them and match them in many different ways as you possibly can. You can have many, many, many different possibilities. But then the Rebbe says, we see that there's not only a great variety of different types of creations, there's different levels in their closeness and distance from the Eibishter. So the Alter Rebbe answers that with Nacha point.
What, the letters have different?
The creations that are created by the letters are not just different from one another, they're different levels from one another. Some are closer to Hashem and some are further from Hashem. Says the Rebbe, Hine, Hakel Nimshach lefi chilufei, Hatzirufim Vatmuris. It has to do with the fact that not all the letters of all the creations are the original letters. Some of them are changed and replaced. Ba'at Bash V'chuli, according to the mystical secrets of letters being exchangeable. Alter Rebbe said in Shari Yiched Zamun Perek Aleph, that there's 231 different mechanisms in Kabbalah that allow you to change letters from one another. As written in Shari Yiched Zamun Perek Beis. So there's two issues. The first issue is that the different diversity of mixtures of letters creates all kinds of different creations. Then the fact that the original letters of Saddam Amoris are changed and replaced and changed. And the lowest level, of course, is Gematria. This affects not just a great variety of different types of creations, but a great variety of different levels of creations in terms of the closeness and distance from the Eibishter. And the real reason for this great diversity, both in different amounts and both in different levels, has to do not so much with the midas of the Eibishter, it has to do with the letters. Says the Rebbe Ach Derech Klal, but the rule as a constant is, Hine kulam, all of them, Ba'alei Chochma v'das. We're talking about the ruchnistic creations, like Malachim and even the Galgalim, and therefore they're wise and knowing. But Yedim is Beidim, they have some sense of their Creator, Mipnei Hayes Chayusam, because their life is Mipnimias Ha'esias, from the inner dimension of the letters. And what is the inner dimension of the letters? Hanim Shachet Mebechinas Chochma Elav, V'kanaf, at the level of Chochma. When the Eibishter speaks to create the ruchnistic worlds, there's an idea, there's an oir, and then there's a guf, there's a letter. In the ruchnistic worlds, the dimension of the letter which is manifest is the ruchni of the Gashmi, is the tzura of those words which comes from Choch. So B'yud Nivra Elam Haba means, although when the Eibishter creates any world with speech, there's a Gashmiistic aspect and a ruchnistic aspect to the guf of the Isis which the Eibishter creates. In those worlds, the predominance is the Yud, is the ruchnistic. However, Elam Hazeh Hashafal, this low world, even though it too is created by the Eibishter's words, and if it's created by the Eibishter's words, there's also a tzura and a ruchnis, the way the Eibishter speaks them. Says the Rebbe, in the life which is inside of itself, since it is katan mehakil, it's too small from being a vessel for, the lisbel to be tolerant of, eir v'chayis, the light and life, mebechinas tzuras to eisim miyusam, from the form of the letters and their inner dimension, which would be the sounds, the ruchnius of the guf of Isis, lahoyer, to radiate, or lashpia, and to give a flow, by into the physical creations. Without a garment, without a concealment, as it radiates and flows, to the neshamas in the spiritual worlds, right? So the nevrayim in the Gashmiistic world cannot get a giloy of the ruchnius of the oisis which create the ruchniistic worlds. So let's be clear on this. When Eibishter speaks the word, there's heart and mind, there's neshama in the words, and then there's the words themselves. We're not talking about the neshama, we're talking about the words themselves. We said that the ruchnius, the worlds, get chayas mostly from the ruchnius of the oisius. Okay? Lahoyer ul ashpia bei, to radiate and to flow into em, bali levush v'hes, without a garment, without a concealment. Kamei ires, so mashpias, as it radiates and flows, l'neshamas malachim, to the neshamas and the malachim. So this world cannot tolerate it. It is only, last line on the page, ha-ha'ara v'ha'ashpa, the ray, the light and the flow, that is bo v'nishpa le'elam hazeh, that comes and is flowing into this world, even though there is really a ruchnius to the Isis, and there is also a gashmius to the Isis, but what is experienced in a revealed way, only from the material and the body half of the letters, and their outer half, which is the part of the air, which is divided up into 7 airs, Shabbat in the book of Kehelis. This is the Sefer Kehelis, where the Pasuk Shleim says, Hevel havolim omer Kehelis hakel havel. Hevel havolim is 3. Hevel is 1. Havolim is 2 more is 3. Hevel havolim omer Kehelis hakel havel. Hevel havolim omer Kehelis hevel havolim hakel havel. You hear? You listening? So it says Hevel 3 times and Havolim twice. Hevel means 1 time Hevel. 1 times 3 is 3. Havolim means 2 times Hevel. 2 and 2 is 4. So that's 7. And I looked up a Maimeh where the Rebbe explained that the Hevel Havolim goes on the the Gashmius of the 7 Midas, the Chitzonius of the 7 Midas. So the Gashmiistic world, which is also created with the combination of the letter Yud and Hey, but because it's a world with such little capacity to experience godliness in a revealed way, the predominant part of the Oisius Hadibur of creation, which is manifest in this world, is the Gashmius of the Dibur, the Hey of the Dibur, as opposed to the Ruchnis, the Yud of the Dibur. Says the Alter Rebbe. It refers to the what comes out of the mouth of Hashem, so to speak. HaMislabish, which reveals itself in this world, the Chol Tzvav and all of its hosts, to give them life. And it is revealed, but of course, in the Hay, in the Gashmis of the so-called Dibur of Hashem, in the Guf, the Choymer of the Eibishter's words, there's also the Tzuras Eid, which comes from Yud. The Amachshava and the thought from the Midas of the Midas of the Eibishter, so to speak, the Sfidas, and the wisdom of the Eibishter, and the will of the Eibishter, and so forth. In other words, ultimately, the speech that creates this world is connected to godliness, which is higher than the air of the so-called speech of Hashem. That the lowest level of the Kelim of Malchus Datzilus, which is represented by the lower Hay, becomes the neshama of this world of Asi. In other words, the Kelim have 3 parts. The inner part of the Kelim becomes the basis for the Oisius Hadibur that creates Elam Abriya. The middle part of the Kelim becomes the basis for the Oisius that creates the Nivraim of Elam Hayetzira, and the Chitzenius HaKelim Machal Datzilas become the basis for the creation of Elam Asiyah. Although in each world you have all 3 dimensions, but which is revealed and which is dominant in this world is the letter He. We can custom it Tikunim, it says in Tikunim, Shayudu, Batzilas, V'chol, the letter Yud itself is in Atzilus. V'hei Tata, this lower Hey, Makanenas, Basiyah, has a home in Asiyah. So I know this sounds like a broken record, but remember, we're talking here only about the words of creation themselves, not the ruchnis of the neshama of creation. That in the words of creation itself, there's tzura and chaymer, there's neshama and guf, and the words of the creation themselves. And in this world, the predominance is the last letter here.